welcome to UCLA. I see many new faces here that we don't often see at our presentations in the Center for Buddhist Studies. My name is Robert Buswell. I'm the director of our Center for Buddhist Studies here. And on behalf of all of the faculty and graduate students in Buddhist Studies at UCLA, it's a very great honor to welcome Kempo Sodaji to campus today. Kempo is one of the leaders of the Tibetan Institution of Higher Education, the Larung 5 Sciences Buddhist Academy. And you see a picture of Larung and the larger cities surrounding the institution here on your screen. As you can see, this is a massive seminary, which is located near the town of Sertar in present-day Sichuan province in China, in what is traditionally the Han area of eastern Tibet. Larung was founded in 1980 by Kempo's teacher, the Kipton, or treasure revealer, Kenshin Jigme Kunsok Rinpoche. Larung has quickly grown into one of, if probably not the largest, Buddhist institution in the world today, with well over 10,000 monastic students in residence who are actively engaged in formal study at the academy. I've seen estimates also that there may be upwards of 40,000 people, both lay people and monks and nuns, in residence around the site. Of the students, almost 4,000 are nuns, which means that the academy is educating more female monastics than any other institute in the world today as well. And in addition, over 10% of the students at Larung are ethnic Han-Chinese, which demonstrates the fulfillment of Kenshin Jigme Kunsok's vision of reaching out to a broad community of interested Buddhists of all ethnicities and nationalities. Kempo Sodaji Rinpoche is one of the most eminent disciples of Kenshin Jigme Kunsok and is a leader at the academy. So please join me now in welcoming to UCLA, Kempo Sodaji Rinpoche.
Terandane, tene Tomer, tene Gilgin Nambatang, tene Lomatsola, Sandra Jashidelo Sijian.
So first I'd like to offer my warm Tibetan greeting to the entire audience here and all of the students.
Taterang Sigindi Chachakanandundo so Larung Garka Zifchandang Sarzik, the name Pelgi, Dandir Korkung to the Baz Goga Zitan, the name Gilgan Nabatan, Tomanamba Kona Bitin Rason. The Nina, the Tangi Rangonina, Chirizena, the Larung Garka Murchutana, the Shindana, Tandimo, Jana Chapchop Shikitana, Jana. The Judge Shiku Mubachimbo May, Mechik James of Chik the Cherezena, Matsu Larung Garden, the knee, that Java New Shees in the Carson Terra Java Hajam Mons, the Diva, the Nichi Da Chiller Control, get to go Lopjatan, to Jambaga, to the Lekon Soda Mandrava, to De la Chapchop Shikitan, the Jindala. To Jordak Piku Timotariga, Tati Vatan, you mamyonre, the Nina, James of Chikdungi Dariga, Shirnat, Larunka, the Tari Jorgu, the Muba Me.
And so I've been specifically requested by the professors and the students at this center to speak about the establishment and development and the activities of Larung Institute. And of course, I must admit that from my own side personally, I don't really want to do that because I don't want to advertise publicly and kind of make it seem too seductive to you, because if I do that, as you are aware, it's growing every year, the population of students, not only the monks and monastics, but also the independent students as well. And so I actually, from my side, don't really want to make it that much more inviting to you, because we're reached to capacity, and it's a struggle to maintain the resources to constantly care for all of the incoming students. So that's why I don't really want to talk about it.
다 다른 측도 김성 측도 잔압적 김에빠도 지리잖아 다 가성대랑 책이 오히려 그 곰바 잠바 소이나 가마 자바 하장 망보이나 대서 말아 뇽뇽 그거 기억냈을 때 뭐여제 그나 곰방가리 그 자바 다 니기야 섬기야 디모요네나 당상 지금 야 야르마티모 마라 자바 책의 제뇽 로지 디모인제 드닝서 네 라롱 가르게나 당상 담 간진 지금 번소 장학식 차르는데다 옛나요 그 자바다는 뭐장 책가 드니 마라 제뇽 로고요 말에 뭐 야라 탕리 망가요래 또 말은 야르 망가요디 드니 ng수 ngô 그 다니르 고니나 다니다 하창 다리가 스카모레 덴디 지금 제리오크 다 레카 몽보스게요 라롱 가르 뭐망 첸로 다니리 하메용 그세 이다나 드니 디모 몽샤게 원제 데인네나 그 땅아이나 그 사차강다 강아소나요 지금 라롱 가르 그 지금 차추다네 용단다네 니모 탐치도 드니 강아소나야 다리 적기디 지금 스토르나다시 땅아이나 디모 메
And another one main reason for this is actually, interestingly enough, many of the Tibetan monasteries that were considered quite populated in the past with, let's say, what we would consider a large population of Tibetan monastics populating the monastery, let's say 200 or 300, that over time it seems to be consistently declining. And so what started out as a large monastic population of 200 or 300 monks then nowadays declines to, let's say, 100. Well, it's quite the opposite with Larungar, where we see that even after the passing of its founder and teacher, Kenshin Jigme Punso Rinpoche, despite that, it seems that every year, actually, the number of students and the number of people coming to Larungar is consistently increasing. And the thing about this is that, like for me, and for us who are involved in sort of the responsibilities of caring for, maintaining, and sponsoring these people, then of course it becomes a little challenging when the population exceeds the capacity. And so that's why traditionally it is not my custom, even though I do travel around the world on these tours, but it is not my custom to sort of boast about and discuss about Larungar to try and, bring more people there.
다들 있나요? 드니 다리 길긴 제목 공고 수시자즈 그더니 다달은 드니 라롱가 그단 페이지그런 바즈 그 샤코고즈 이단 디목송고 다 디목송디데 드니 모머도 와잠제 고난자가 드니 콩남비 노파스타르다는 그 당이 대란 디초 통통스 그나가 쳬남발라 다리 모추 디바스 지르기연
That being said, by these great esteemed professors that have requested me specifically to speak about Larungar and specifically about the developments of Larungar, then so as not to refuse your kind request and not to disappoint you, today I will talk about it. I will give you a brief introduction.
단동 모추시기도 싫나 지 추우 모추시릭단 직등거 모추시릭 양만 보서 요너래 직등거 모추시릭 다 회랑 저기 라롱가르 사참 도만 간자즈나 쳐요 대신도는 지금 미 초아 로스탄 간자즈긴 다 사차 전인데나 공고나 다 킬로미터 치모스요 단 니모라 소바가 그 모추 제가 당상 단단나 인터 자와 자기야가 나나야나 하자 모요너래 익톡나야 요너래 때니나 네 대란더니 킬남발라 모추시 교원도 다 추쇼는 게요 지금 다리가 다 지금 상위 쇼들 거는 자가 지금 탐모 많이 빌고 그 되는 모추 디바즈 그 쉽상 거요.
And so generally speaking, like when asked to discuss or introduce, let's say, a place or a sacred site, there are two ways to go about this. One is the mundane explanation on a relative plane, and one is a more spiritual or rather transcendental kind of approach to the explanation of the history. And so a mundane or worldly explanation would be something to the sense of like, this is the altitude and this is the way the people in this area tend to lead their lives, and this is how many kilometers are here and this is the distance and so forth, just like hard facts. But all of these facts you can find easily now on the internet, and also it's written in many printed texts. So what I want to offer you today is more of an approach that is a spiritual take on it, what we call like more of the secret inner meaning. the sacred interpretation of the development of Larugar. And so that's what I will be doing today. We call it the extraordinary or like sacred transcendental way of interpreting a place.
다 Larugar ka tangsang shichib ko lorgi wang da shenena tari gitun kong songar tatare tani 다 chig yach thambi lo ne tarti war ta lo parchir tari samchu sornga 다 디모스 그나마 다리가 송은데 데인디 지금 로르지 다리가 달로 로 다리 하자 모는라 디모스 기온 말에 레타는 지금 미 다리가 망용다는 강화가 망용다는 대진도는 다 롭자 뛰는 그 지금 뭐 다리가 개바 뭐 소경시요 주고 타네나 당선양 지금 초바전다 만자바 그네 되는 잠몰는 거 당아 지금 다리가 다 지금 망작 요찬하다 다 디모스가 지려온데
So Larugar, as you know, established in 1980, it's been almost like 35 years since the establishment, and so relatively speaking, that's kind of a young monastery. It hasn't been around that long, but however, among all of the monasteries, this location of Larugar has seen the sustenance of so many followers and so many students and practitioners. And so in terms of like the sheer number of people making a connection to Larugar and residing there and studying there and being supported in their studies and practices, then it is quite well known for just the sheer number of people.
다 당선 데 아메리카인 나자거든요. 인지 야나 다 사차 몽스 그 사르게 그나나양 데니 라룽가르던 잠볼은 그 나왔던 걸 롭자 치슈레제 이다나 나마양 몽스 정제 당상양 다리 몽스 적여온제 단도 동거던 거또 지금 나왔던 걸 롭자 치슈 인내양 타 만내양 타 치레제나 당선 딱 사르게다나 대진도 뭐 탐치고 적노나나 라랑 오면 장락당나 다리 프로듀싱바 임바양요 라라 만바양요 나리 깡따리양 네텔라 그바당 주바시 그메타 디 출근도 제거나 로랑도나 드니 오늘 지금 출라 짐직 쉬는 거다 몽고스도 디치도 드는 디다는 그거 콩남베 로종 시기요 교원도 지금 시티 정나 모습 참마전래
So now in many parts of the world, America, of course, and China, and in many languages as well, it has been sort of reputed that Larugar is what is considered to be the greatest or largest Buddhist institute of its kind in the world. Now, this is how it has been repeatedly spoken about. Now, whether it is in fact, objectively speaking, the largest Buddhist center of studies in the world, I obviously am not in a position to claim that, as there are many other institutes that are quite large and impressive around the world. And so, but anyway, I'm not really interested in trying to see if it is the greatest institute in the world of its kind. But one thing that I want to say specifically about this is that when it comes to researchers, spiritual research, or rather ecumenical studies of Buddhism and its traditions, then it is quite obvious, it is quite clear that there is a tremendous strength in number of people who come here and really are able to facilitate the studies.
당 니고니나 그거 지금 야치 캬르가로 라롱가도 그 야치 담발로는 고츠인데 되니 아 야치 캬르가로 되니 라롱가라토니 디네르급나 파르치르다 그거 조모고 다리 초바요는 말에 디네르급나 자와가 초바요는데 자와 대형은 파르치르다리가 단 이기야다 섬기야 다 디모고 그 장가야면서 야가 다 되니 기론디 다티 밀로다리 닝모이나 다 밀로다리 섬치 잠스가나 다 되니 담보지 로종 다리 시 되니 지 로종 다는 롭치니까 냠듯이 다는 따따와다 다리 송원제 되니나 니 상로 땅나 다리 라롱거 뜨금 헤기인데 지 슈크지거 당상 롭자 잠바초단 잔자거 그 록소다는 당녀그 니바 되니 캄본 지금 편속라소바 기르근 책이 니바 대양 다리 캬버전지 야커 되니 슈크 니시 타크니 지 타모 마임비 나츠 다리가 타커그 무그 지금 마르고 와거니는 때라야 지금 다 출르크제나 때라 다리 지금 니바다는 텐식 캬버전젠제 다 때잔지 요나야 다리 메초기 요기 마르고 삼기고 나라 다리가 기르근고 삼서티 모요.
So, Lalungar, as you know, established in 1980, and I first came there in 85, so it was only 5 years after the original founding. And at that time, there wasn't actually a nunnery there at all, so there was no like nuns, only monks, and there were only about 200 or 300 at that time starting out. And over the 30 years that I've been associated with Lalungar, not only first, of course, in all of my academic and spiritual studies, but also in studying to become a teacher as well. In my studies and teaching career there, you can say that I've seen a marked increase. And as far as discussing like the way in which that Lalungar has grown and flourished and developed, of course there's something to be said about the fact that there is a capacity that is in league with that of the like great institutions of learning that you see in the West, like these universities, in terms of the capacity to provide for all of the students there, and also the knowledge and capacity and power of the teachers, for example, like Kyambojime Pinsol, of course. But something else that I think, and this is more following along the lines of something a little bit extraordinary, is there seems to be almost like a magnetic quality to the place. Of course, that's just one person's point of view, of course, but it seems to have a magnetizing pull to it, that people just feel kind of like drawn to come there and study.
좋아. 신난 직된 그 감거 그거 공부보강 야란 페르기나 자가 말을 냥긋기나 자가 텔라다리 그 ngacheki muk rigi girken mo zondre tene dari muk mrigi girken mo zondre ngacheki da rang lipola nana ni naran jaga mo khne na jaga ka ta yin jikten ka kham ko tene phera dan jpatela to thmon da thmon ayin per girken mo zondre te ne na nge pena daga dang chiki larong to ke churden de la ya thmongir ki mo zore ta te nerkus mashide ta thmong chushok yana to ge jikin gare yokire che nambi nana gare ge tela yechi kire gare ge tela yechi ki mare da gang tar yana korkum da da ne da nge da resa samsir da ngarang ta jimjik shenu to ge sha azer ko na da sama ga che nambala da rjoki.
Now, of course, in this world, there are many different reasons why things either grow or fall into decline. And so the growth or the decline or degeneration of any entity or any phenomenon in the world is basically due to a multitude of factors. And some of these are visible, obvious causes and conditions, and some of these are invisible. Some of these are underlying and not clear to the eye. And so there are, anyway, a number of reasons why something is either successful and flourishes or why something degenerates. For example, talking about a person's illness or a person's death, for example, there are many causes, many conditions that come together to lead to the result as it occurs. So what I want to say is that, of course, there are many kind of what you can call linear and relative explanations for the success and development of Lalungar on a relative level. But then that's not what I want to talk about today. What I want to talk about today is the extraordinary, what we would say falls into the category of like a transcendental or spiritual perception, the sacred, and the sacred reasons for the flourishing of Lalungar. I want to talk about that. And of course, amongst you today in this audience, some of you may believe these and some of you may not. And of course, this is just one person's perception, but it's taken from years of emic research in the tradition.
Ta Lalungar yinna jaga khambon jigme panso yinna jaga tani tan dastawa ge churde zu shongjo wonde lo nigya ngong tani wokam kheba chimbo chipchin shangchba dorje ze ki wondi maung long tang gar kamna tani taksaro zu songje.
And so, as for the development or the founding of Lalungar as an institute and the founder himself, Kenshin Jigme Pinsol Rinpoche, there were what we call the prophecies foretelling the coming of this master, and one of them started 200 years before actually Khenpo Jigme Pinsol even was born. And this was a prophecy by a great saint of the Buddhist tradition whose name was Jamshuk Dorje. He was a great accomplished wisdom sage, and he actually wrote down a clear prophecy describing in the future time, 200 years later, that there would be this amazing institute and this master coming.
다 롱튼 제 키로디 케르 넘바 당럽 그 나중 가리 옙 메치네 양 당다 니무니나 롱튼 가레라 nga yichi 롱튼 가레라 yin mechi 강 따리양 nga chu te ribab jenne na yongsa shet gosare samga khoina amerike wandshena lorgina tenen pakchu jipirkabna ameriki ta thogmar the chigdan gupch gogelo ameriki rawang gyarkap thongyo ndayang longton yonri zen kheba mo shapar kapondre devjin dana ta faransi longton chimoziki yiki nana tene oros gyarkap thorjik singerkiwo tan deyang tariga shadyo nrezi ifshakondre ta tela so pagane longton gareta nguni mershima tamchigti kirondi chi yam samaz yonod ngonire.
Now that being said, I personally am not one of those people who believes every prophecy and prediction that I hear. Of course, some prophecies I do take to be significant and others I don't think are very accurate. And like, for example, there are many biblical prophecies, like the Revelations, in which like the coming of the rising of America is like a powerful country. Some scholars, some biblical scholars will say that there were these prophecies in the Bible of the rising of the country of America. And then there's, of course, the French astrological prophecies of like the fall of Russia and so forth. And some of these prophecies like appear to have kind of like truth to them, but then there are many other prophecies that don't have truth. So I'm just one of those people that I do kind of think it's important to investigate when there's a prophecy or a prediction, but I don't just believe every prediction that I see.
Tati tarisi kyoren di chupchen shanchub dorjega tani larong gark longtun zga chigon zena tani khwarngadam hai lalong do khwar orgin ki chran jingmen sa khur nam ji shanchub de chogla chumdor ngir ki tamba nyerjin sar khung rodan samtar pola ra khur tak bi darsha shokchir ke temjegen dechin jangdan ren zeitana ta tsirkan den 다 지금 등근나 조 라롱가 다리가 사차가 내다나 라롱 댐큰 것도 관본 직면 분석다나 더 라롱거 로마 더 코르차가 데네 다리 라롱거 로샤가 더 추운다다 다 데네 다리가 더 신속을 개판다는 다트그 더 천례 데라서 바돈슨 넘바 등글고 사로즈도 송원들에 데인나 더 네 데랑 그 디촌데라 키르나 발라다리 데디바즈 더
So I want to read to you this prophecy by this great saint named Janchu Dorje, and the prophecy translates as follows: in the sacred golden drum-named place in this valley of the Lamas, there will be one whose name is Jigme, fearless, who is an emanation of Orgen, the glorious Guru Rinpoche. At this place there will be the gathering of the Bodhisattva followers who fit into the 4 traditional categories of the Buddha's retinue. And there the Dharma of Sutra and Mantra traditions will shine like the sun. And this great master will be like this great mountain of bringing benefit to others. And the pure disciples will spread this pure teachings throughout the 10 directions, and all who make a connection to this master will be freed, liberated in the pure land of Dewachen, of great bliss. And so those are 7 lines, and in those 7 lines what is being revealed is the exact location, the geographic location of this place, as well as the master that would found this place, Jigme Consult, and the followers or disciples, and also what is the subjects that will be taught there, what is the spiritual tradition of the Dharma, and then also the ultimate goal or the real high aim of everyone, like the soteriological aims of those who participate in this institute, and the ultimate sort of enlightened activities that will be accomplished on the ultimate or transcendental level. So there are 7 points, and so that's kind of what I want to discuss here today.
다티는 당보 tani ne pasam soba se konanda larong se de chimon jena daga ta ne chimbo che namba gande ne ngama di longten de ngoma ngom차는 치레제나 짐직 모셔야 되는데 tani takshi shini dana ta ina yidmi chi kami ka sunga ka tina tan dina ga ne pusum sokbanda taga ngala takse dana damjin onira devjin dana zichin shingal hamu ziki onira nambak samgar ki kana ularung zaganda ki sachata yonar yezo.
So first is showing like what we call the perfect place, or the purest location, sacred space. So here the sacred space, or the perfect location, is described in the prophecy. The golden sacred drum is signifying the names of the three sacred places that converge in this valley of Larung, and that is Ngalatakse, Damchin, and Shini Wamo, and those are the Tibetan words, but the syllables of the words also translate as like golden, drum, and sacred. And so these three sacred places, and I myself have done a lot of research too on kind of the history of these sacred holy sites. And so all of these converge in this valley that we call Lamgang. So there's some significance there from the prophecy of showing exactly the location as being what we consider a sacred space.
Larung zekinda gon nangdon chiresena zoda lama rongwa ta lama rongwa zena satena songdi de chuba chushi jiga mana raptshungwa rongwa ze tani ngaso 사체들 raptshungwa momboyore chiresena mombozu de tesongwa dan raptshung sam jiyo tari sambat yongji timoyore ta larung zekinda kinda ta tarung the dunjum ramboche gar namthar dunjum kamchang tangwo gar namthar nana larung di sacha di ta lama pamma zikin da gyamcho zikin da tani tari ga sku wot da soni gorkut jorwa mupchaksum shomnywa zidan timo dan sa khabar janzaga tani namthar ga nana songre.
So the word Larung, actually the name literally means Lama Rungwa, which means fit to be a master or a guru. And the word, what this refers to is somebody who develops spiritual qualities to their consummation, and then is fit to be really a spiritual being. And so that's also referring to the monastics and the renunciates. And as you know, in Larungar there are many who are monks and monastics and renunciates, and a lot of people come to that place and then they are suddenly filled with a yearning to renounce the worldly life and to become monastics. And so Dijum Rinpoche's previous reincarnation, the predecessor, whose name is Dijum Rinpa, he had 13 disciples who were known to have achieved some attainments through their spiritual practice, which we call rainbow body attainments, and all of them were from that area.
Mupchaksum dari lama pama gyamso ziki timo go mupchaksum dari ku gut tangso te workut jora tina te larung ga ka sacha timnyang sangching workut yu wenchu libo gut tangso no wensa tinda sekiore lama pama da gyamso la sopa mupchaksum dari ku goli tangso res.
And so some of these were named Lama Pema and Gyaltso. So these 13 practitioners who achieved what we call rainbow body, it means at the time of their death, their physical corporeal form dissolved into light, became a light body. And so this place was named as the great secret location for the rainbow body attainment. That's what this particular location was termed.
Sacha dene na chu gunona jirgi wangzha zagane ke ta wangge le ziki kame yishin den zhe ngoma te tun zgana te tun zg te long na wangge long pa ma ka xie ta ne gun qin bu si xiang kala dang zai da dan di la rong ge de wangge le gang zhi ki jan zi na te kame yishin den zhe tene ngong ge te tun na ba zu yang ti mo song yo ka.
And so also there are considered to be 4 enlightened activities, and these are considered pacifying, enriching, magnetizing, and wrathful. And so this particular area of Larungar is known for its magnetizing qualities. So magnetizing activity is emphasized, and in fact it is said that those who wish to accomplish magnetizing, then if they go to this place, then they are able to wish-fulfillingly magnetize and manifest to themselves whatever they desire without obstruction. And in fact, there's a great treasure revealer who in another prophecy described this place and called it the Valley of Magnetizing Enlightened Power, a place where the lotus flower of magnetizing power is open, it's blooming in this great Nukgun from Nukgun or Nuk monastery. There will be this golden bird will open its wings, and so that's another prophecy. But the first description is this place is one constituted by magnetizing power.
다 사차데 사차 총총스레 랑커가 다리 농아 총총스레 다 옛나양 가성대랑 때네 그 잠보는 그 사차 뭐 캬버더 그 상기 비출가 점직시에는데 파르체와서 그다 마고지 메파타는 저티모스 그 송원데 대인나 라롱 제저디 인제 사차래 다 옛나양 디 출교스 저다 라롱 그 출교스이다 고고래 nga 가성 개념디 네 로산지 근데나 할레우드 다리인데 사체요고 다 대송에 그런디 네 때나디 사체 대양나 다리 사체 총총스레 레타양 잠모는 그 마고지 메파타베 나추 라롱나양 디모고 다리가 잠모랑가 식진 침보송 말다양 다 추발라 짐지 가비 다리는 문용시가 나나 그 사체 대양나 다리 다 그 회나 할레우드 사체 그 잠모랑 나비라전도 나추 사체 대양나 뭐뭐보고 고고 요래.
Actually, geographically and relatively speaking, when you look at the sheer space and size of Larongar, it's just one valley. Actually, it's quite small. It's quite small in comparison to other places. And yet, for all those who have any kind of interest or connection to like Buddhism or Buddhist studies, there's pretty much no one throughout the world who hasn't at least heard once of Larongar. So it's quite well known. It's world renowned. And so, interestingly enough, like if you look at the size of it, it seems quite humble, but yet somehow it's managed to get a world renowned name for itself. And interestingly enough, like, you know, since coming to Los Angeles, of course, I had to tour Hollywood, the famous Hollywood, and I was taken by how small what you consider the town of Hollywood is, like compared to the city. But yet, even though Hollywood is such a small place, the name Hollywood has spread throughout the world. There's nobody in the world that hasn't heard about Hollywood, that doesn't know about Hollywood. But if you look at it, it's such a small little location. Well, it's kind of similar with Larongar, although of course Larongar isn't famous on a very like worldly level amongst those who have no connection to Buddhism. But for anyone who is researching and who is interested in Buddhist traditions, then Larongar is something that very few have not heard of. It is quite popular, quite well renowned.
라롱가르 나마다 이게 사찬디모 동아 디모스 그는 름바진데 야르차용데 다 거기는 나 땅보 통번에 끝나도 라롱가나 강화 하장용 발전 디모스래.
So this is how it was in the beginning when it was first established. This was around when I first came to Larongar. As you see, there are very few buildings there.
드니 돈당 니바드 치레세나 드니 다리 돈당 니반도 드니 다 돈바 무슨 속바즈르고나 라롱가 샵답시노 간친 직면 분석을 디크지지긴 등 간친 직면 분석도 다 치레세나 쪼도 드니 크스티 나마도 드니 테스톤 레로랑 바세 드니 야랑 검청 쳤음 바다 일단 니 토튼 잠초가 올라서 기리요 디모스레 드니 다리가 다 잠물은 것당나 다리 하정 쫙 치와가 그 개발한 침보들 테스톤이랑 침보를 당상 다리 테스트 하정 모스 요구요래.
So the second line of that prophecy indicates the founder of Larongar, who is like what we call in the spiritual definition the perfect teacher or the sacred teacher. And the perfect teacher being Kenshin Jigme Pencil. And to tell a little bit about him, he's been recognized as the reincarnation of a very, very renowned Lama and master. And his name was Lerab Rinpa, and he was a treasure-revealing master, a saint, a sage, and he not only was extremely learned and accomplished on the spiritual studies and academics, but he was also a tremendously accomplished master of the rituals. And so this was who he was then later recognized as when he took rebirth as Jigme Pencil.
회남 간진 직면 분석되나 공 주그 양인결에 상고요. 근데 대통령이요. 다 디름니 시위 나마다가 잠몰은 그 출입바수나 식진 치슈가 그 라마즈리 닝오니나 니 길근레 드니 다 결급 몽어형의 잡치시다는 롬용아 옛날에 다 대란 치는 발라 모추 시기 등에 길긴 빙고 그 때라 또 흥었다 디모시는 아주 추근하나 그 전당의 비조르스가 라마라요 또 뭐시야 송은데 대나 다리가 전단은 조르르 그거 랑가다리 길근다는 싸울라마 또 나요 또 쓰다만 템바리지 송은데 대내나 다리 다 랑무 그 장된다는 대진도는 그 로즈르니 비고가는 다 공기형 그 길 남들 디바장스 그 말아 샤기
And so, Khyentse Jigme Phuntsol Rinpoche is what we in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition call a Druku, a reincarnate Lama. And also, he was a Terten, a treasure revealing master. And of course, in the 20th century, he was so well renowned as a Lama of all the different traditions, and he was really like so many people had a connection and were able to meet him. And so, he was, of course, not only that, but my personal teacher and my guru. And so I've been all over the world touring different countries. And this is something I want to say is that, when asked to talk about my own personal spiritual teacher, I really try to bracket my own kind of personal feelings and try to be more objective, because even in the Buddhist scriptures, there's a line that reads, even to one's own guru, it is not fitting, it is not appropriate to utter words that are mixed with mistruths in order to kind of cover over like any sort of objective reality about your teacher. In other words, it's not just like I'm blinded by faith and so I'm just talking and like praising my teacher. I don't like to do that. I really try to be objective. I try to bracket my personal feelings, but really speak about his qualities that are truly verifiable.
당상 지금 저거 문전 설거 녀자 장즈가 연결을 해. 다양 옛날에 다리 저거 넘버도 봐도 회나 다리가 카르마와 소바가 되니 다리가 신창 하청 여하 무슨이나 당 원이 니 고상로 당나 다리 저거 저거 견다 캬추당 되니 지금 잔다 만자가 그래 상고요.
When we talk about the word druku, which is a term for someone who voluntarily reincarnates again and then is found and discovered, this druku nowadays has become quite a sort of a kind of complicated issue, finding drukus and reincarnations of lamas. But to really talk about what we consider a pure reincarnated being, a pure druku, when you really talk about a druku, it should show like a person who has some sort of special qualities, in my personal opinion and understanding of druku.
네, 대돈 이런 방법 콘그 그렇게 심아 한번 지금 건설도 치링 우송원을 했잖아. 더니 콩 직된되네 만나는 영원의 DPG스 그 공급 측근도 더니 4차 누적 그 쇼스들이 총주고 다 문제가 등그 더니 이게 하정사로서도 비다는 그거 저번에 다디 이게 너무 칩지원되나 그거 네 문제를 치김 존에서 당 문제로 이 소모라 rig 문제를 밤이 동부르제 흥업 나는 주의 기금 초 로 문제는 카당 샤라 땀 리 문제를 람타르 칸주다 응업 문제 대hnur ям수 յան իդ 문제 추키 랑원 첫 당에다 로이 한존을 때 체레제니나 nga jaachya thamba tari khung ti longten dela tari ichi ore ta tinanga tinanga chibjeon jena khambon jingme phonsok to chimoz gin chongjire jena to sacha to tari ga tene zeme churang to chujim jone zeke da tene yim mayim te yim so zeke pha de tari ga babma zeke 대전 더 콩거 그렇게 ngama 나는 도지든 좀 임바당 더 콩거 공형도 공형 샤랍던 바당 콩거 리보거 딱도 체레제나 더가 샹터나 다림 칸죽경 그거 르모요 바다 ngakh 문제리 다도 되니 대노 잠소라 차파다 소파 토바메 바임 바당 대전 더 다리 특히 다리고 다텔라 되니 출기 라저 다리 자리고 출기 더가 추탐적 추니적 다전도 또요 대다비 다리 딱 다 문제로 앞든가 문제로 앞게 디모즈 그거는 종기인 제이다 콩르 다 닝을 마디 공근에는 또 이게 비하에다나 지마다 이게 떨다다나 그 문전 중에다나 한번 지면 번서 다 콩르 다리가 되니 그 파일 레 마임 레 사차 다리 총사레 카성다는 그 찌다 전도 그 송에 그다 디모스 그 송원래.
So, how he was sort of recognized as being the Drupa, or the reincarnation of the great treasure revealing master Dekten Lirab Limpa was, before Lirab Limpa passed away, he wrote a prophecy to help find his reincarnation, in which he had what are called the 7 unchanging signs, by these signs you will be able to find my reincarnation. And he wrote it in poetry, in a kind of a symbolic verse. And I've actually memorized this because I have 100% faith in this prophecy. So I will repeat from memory. The prophecy reads, in the unchanging place, Chugi Jumne. That's the name of the place. And then he said there will be an unchanging radiance or luminosity in the lake of the lotus. And that translates also as the name of his future mother. And then the bones will be unchanging. The patriarchal bone lineage will be unchanging, he says, one who is named Benma. And then it goes on to say, born in the year of the bird, on his hands in his body, he will show the unmistaken signs of the Dakinis. And his mind will be unchanging because he will have realized the intrinsically pure awareness. And unchanging will be his wisdom activities because he will be a master at all the 3 baskets, the Tripitaka. And he will be an unchanging master. And so all of this, and also he will be unchanging, recognized as the emanation of Dijam Nanam Dorje. So this was, again, who he is an emanation of. And so, interestingly enough, when you read through the lines of the prophecy by Lirab Limpa before he passed away, you can see Zime Chola Chugi Jumne is actually the name of the place that was indicated in the first line of the verse, and that was where he was found, Yumso was found. And his mother's name was Yumso, which means like the same meaning as was described symbolically in the descriptions, the etymology of her name. And then the father's name had the first name Padma, which means lotus. And then he was definitely the unmistaken emanation of Nanam Dorje. And also, born in the year of the bird, he also had the physical signs in his body. On the palms of his hands, he had the mandala image, like it looked like a picture of the mandala in the lines of his palm of the Dakinis. And so that was one of the unmistaken signs. And then saying he was a master of the Tripitaka, the 3 baskets of the Buddha's teachings, he had untrammeled knowledge of all of the Buddha's teachings, and he taught these. And he had what we say in the traditional Li, we say he beheld the true face of Dharmakaya. It's another way of saying is he had realization of the ultimate nature of all phenomena. He had this great realization. So in this, Lirab Limpa, before passing away, wrote this down, and then it was later opened. This letter was opened after his passing, and then they went and kind of, by these clues, found the reincarnation. And sure enough, all of these 7 or 8 unchanging signs were definitely verifiable. Every line that you would look at, then it would match with exactly the father, the place, how he manifested, and everything, exactly as per the prophecy.
다 콩거 드니 다리가 책을 나름 간도 또 야락사르도 장래. 드니 콩거 다 로몬보스가 또 로랑 갑랑 소이. 드니 지마 다 당선거 다리가 랑촌 제남 칸로마 다리가 멈소. 또 콩거 송제. 콩인나 시집거 다리가 범메 텐젠데다 이나요 또그 땅아 술감도 저 무스거 싫나 다 워크 bomba chakana na chawa go langso do chawa go shi je me ka langso me ka shi jong de masu organ de la de chawa da me nikai yo de la yana ya de ga langso so won de kan ro man mon so re da khong go yo langso shi da na de lo lang ga langso shi da par chir da ri lo cha zam de so won de masu gar de na ya de ne ji phomon jam nim da na de ne ji won go gormo won go jam nim da na 대전도는 지 다트 마임 바근에는 지 这个看不到的人可个实顿个这个查瓦他们这样呢，咱们面子一种，咱们把这个送这个送，第能个样就做普通咱们个才可以呢，斯兰有的有呢，对这个他做些就个他题目个这个落在的中间题目有个这。
And so actually, Lalungar for many years, of course, is like the head master of Lalungar in Jimmy Pencil Abided. But now it is actually a woman. It is Kandroma Bumso. And actually, she's in the form of a woman. And in many monasteries, I mean, although the monks and the nuns are separate, but yet like the head master of like a monastery for the monks traditionally would be a male figure. And then a woman would be the head master for the nunnery. But in this case, actually, she oversees all. And even though she's in a form of a woman, and yet one of the things that makes this Larungar extraordinary is that we really do believe in equality for male and female monks and nuns, equality also for like those who are like kempos and in hierarchical kind of places of status, and those who are kind of just ordinary monks. We treat everyone equally. There's no like hierarchical bias, and so there are these, we call this 3 types of equality that we try to adhere to.
다도 돈다가 니바리 돈도 선바다 드니 소 코르푸스 소바 다 로마 원도 신이나 가츠 다리 롱등거는 코르남지 샹치 대출라서 기드 조도 시축근 코리나 리미근 코르 드니 야르기나다 소보르기나다 오르기나다 스당이나 찾긴 담바도 참아 마출 가르는 그 로종시 초너레 디 나네요 다 그런데 롱땡은 나나 송조에나 쿠르 남지도 게롱 파다마 대진도 다리가 게님 파마 자가 인제 어나 가마 로지가 땅나 시축고 다 디르 갸빠가니 더가 점마지기도 요건다 옛날 게롱미 동지도 차는 또 꺼내는 요건 말에 다 게롱 마도 메팅 쿠르 남지 추원도 시나 마찬가지겠네 다 드네 다리가 다 컴본 중매 분석을 야리거도 마모즈도 되기고도 그 야르나 게롱미 동지니오는 그 드네 다리가 다 쿠르 남지도 다리가 드네가 손가르나 다리가 창요주고 디모스고 송원데.
So that's the second part of the prophecy, the perfect teacher. And now the next is the line of the prophecy that reads, the retinue, or like the students, the disciples in this monastery, will be like the class of bodhisattvas of the 4 traditional classes of retinue. And so here talking about the students, right? So now, according to this prophecy, and actually according to scriptural definition, whenever you talk about what we call the core nanji, or the 4 circles or 4 types of retinues of Buddha, from the Buddhist, like really literal meaning of the word, it has to refer to 4. What are these? These are the fully ordained monks or bhikshus, fully ordained nuns, bhikshunis, and then the lay, like those who are refuge vow holders, called upasaka, male and female. And so there's 4. So the full ordination though, like novice monks and nuns are not included in this category. So these are the 4 types or categories. Fully ordained monk, fully ordained nun, vow holder, like refuge for vow holder, male, vow holder, female. So now, interestingly enough, in Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we did not have a continuation of the vows of the fully ordained nuns. So that lineage was broken. So there were no Gelong Maza, that is, there were no bhikshunis in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. However, in the Chinese Buddhist tradition, that vow stream had been maintained. So there is a lineage for the fully ordained, full ordination for nuns in the Chinese tradition. Now, if we go by the scriptural meaning, then though interestingly enough, because there are so many different disciples coming from all over, many from China and other places, then of course we actually do have that number is completed, because we do have fully ordained Chinese nuns that then come and practice and study at Lalungar. So that's how that part of the prophecy is actually accurate according to the scriptural meaning of the term.
다 직시나 다른 코르남지도 드니 오나 마마 또 반천은 뭐지 선거를 나왔던 롭자치 모자이다 반천 금천 지와 또 공거 또 시기가 나가다 디모송을 대인의 기록된 가수 간도 또 나왔던 그 롭자치 모자 나왔던 롭자치 모자인데 디나나 로나 다다리 자와거 로랑다 더그 조모 로랑 데네 기닝거 로랑 데네 야르거 다리 로랑제 로랑 첨보지 다 당성의 지게 롭자 침목지가 데네 지그 로소거 로랑다나 로닝거 로랑제 로랑 공우야가 다 뜻소 다워거네는 데인디 나한테 롭자 침모데라 로랑 나바시가 접스리다 가상대랑 다리 더니 시기오다나 로종 시기오도 디터시고데.
And another understanding or interpretation of the 4 types of the retinue, as per like how it is interpreted by the 10th Panchen is more in terms of how there are 4 major schools within this monastic institute, and these are, one is the school of the monks, one is the nuns, one is the lay practitioners with various vows, the upasakas, and one is like the Chinese Buddhists who come. And so there are these 4 kind of aspects or 4 schools within, and those could also be a way to interpret the 4 types of retinue in this monastery. It is a place for Buddhist studies.
Tene tonsen jibado tariga chumdornga kitamba nyenjang sartseonde to chirezena shikib gonsurga lobchat lolanda rngarim namtan lolanze yuzo dana tene soa ja tsabma nangdon jbazi nangdon jbaga zole the mayan baga ta chi tantsig ba nanja man ba nanja ta tariga te rigbi ne nga the da ni rigbi ne chong nga si chi dugar da nyang ta timoyo mo so to jenga yore ti nane kyang the zo de the doshok the jonkabur nga the ndara ngomba chatna devjin dona tariga ta parshin the jonkabur nga the next ngshok the thanmonda thmo mayang baga rigirde tung chiki tariga garki na da jansha ga upte biser kona daga sur lojon shiki na don ta timos ko sonre.
And so now on to the line that talks about the Dharma, the topics of study being like sutra and mantra. And so here, the main particular topic of study at this monastery is, of course, Buddhist studies. And yet there are also other subjects that are taught and offered there. For example, traditional medicine, logic, philosophy, even art and dance, even poetry and literature and so forth. All of this is taught. However, of course, the main emphasis is on Buddhist studies, and Buddhist studies is a large category. It includes the sutra and the mantra tradition. And the sutra tradition includes all of the corpus of traditional scriptural studies, including the Vinaya, the Abhidharma, the Pramana, the Sutra, and so forth, the category of 5 in total. And then in Mantrayana tradition, there's the common mantra tantric traditions, and then the uncommon or extraordinary mantra tantric traditions. These are, of course, the main primary objects of study, but also there are many other subjects offered there as well.
다 로종 시스템도 치즈레잖아 수 되네 투숨 공성 다 비르겐네 당 그거 되네 랑거 냠버고 비시샤데 하즈 투 되네 투도나 안에 양도 상로 당에 그 샤파르 지고 로종 시키다나 되네 다리가 샤파테 랑거 기다 냠스랑에 다나 그 동무 토커던 그 락터 시키원도 되니나 담보 로종 시키 와르드 짐직 시키 되는 타마다 이게 sorta라서 빠시이다나 그 락터 시키원도 책이 오긴나 딱나나 투숨 공숨 제이다나 다 랑직그 다리 추강당 강이나 로종 강당 강시네나 하장 다리 까치부 다리 길롱섬이 고데.
The main method of edification in this traditional setting is what we call listening, contemplating, and meditating. There are 3 ways that we say you can assimilate information and knowledge, and the first is for initially listening to the teachings and the instructions of the teachers, and then following that, then students are encouraged to contemplate and reflect and really probe deeper into whatever they heard and learned. And then upon reflection and deeper analysis, there comes a deeper sense of knowledge, and that knowledge then must be applied to practice and meditation and incorporated in one's deeper part of one's being through meditation and practice. So those are the 3 levels of studies and assimilation. And so we start by first studying and learning the material, but then upon sort of the cursory understanding, we take it deeper and we contemplate and reflect and deepen our understanding, and then we bring it deeper into our practice. And so that is like the method that we believe that knowledge is best assimilated, at least Buddhist studies.
랑돈도 도숨 군숨 시에더니 얀돈도 쪼다리가 차바 쪼바 좀바 차쪼쪼 숨세 기원도 되는 개비 레성세요. 대인이나 다리가 다 랑거 그 도숨 그도 그 라브르시니 시샤데 양거 되는 머스당세나 요하즈다 그 차트 기원도 되네 다 차크 ನಿರ್камна 되네 장글 록톡세리 쳇던 쪼빠가라 강상 잡고지래 당은 저기 오긴 나왔던 게나다가 쪼빠다 하장까지와다 인적거는데 되네 차르는다 쪼는 삼스케요네 건 말에 다쪼 그 릉거 용서 똑비 시샤 대답이 난자가 점타 대답 쪼탐치도 이주적시 결혼 좀 예외다는 되네 머릅시마다는 더샤 잠바츠와 다리가 이긴적시 기원도 차쪼 좀섬진을 등수 더그르가르게 양 쪼 다리 로종거 타블람스가 쓰고는데
So listening, contemplating, and meditating are how we enact the self-benefit. We say like personal benefit. And then how do we then spread that to benefiting others, the altruistic side of it? Well, the altruistic expression of our knowledge is the threefold method of teaching, debating, and composing literature, essays, and so forth. And so through this, like for example, we would say that after we have consummated our knowledge through listening, contemplating, and so forth, then we have to share that knowledge through teaching. And then in order to dispel doubts and in order to help to work with the students' skepticism, then we have to be willing to participate in debate. And so that's why debate is actually a very important aspect of Buddhist studies in Tibetan tradition. So debate is definitely something that we do engage in. And then also composition, producing written works to preserve one's knowledge expression for future generations.
다 지긴데 추고 다리 로중 시상도 되는 가마 화워 초양도 지제 뜻돈 문제 디 다리가 그 관보청아 딱 도빠질 거나라 수른데 디모스 송문제 다티 송요노도 공거 머세치가 다리 추냥슬 렌즈 그 연던 안도르디 빌고고 샤니나 되네 랑돈 투숨 곰밤 타라죠 잔돈 쳇츠츠 빔 천레기 니돈 쉐브르레 기르토도 닌젠체 쳇당 예르멘 산게 쇼제 다티모 츠그즈곤제 등 책임고 있나 데라 이르몬다 지빌고네 되네 랑돈도 지 투숨 곰숨 그 야하즈다 용 잔돈도 쳇바다 쏨빙고라 땡이 키롱에단 더 잔나 판밥 주고 삼기고도 므츠게 다리가 더 모모즈 그 추냠스 렌서 그 다리가 다 탑스르도 다리 일란 창조도 쪼디모스 그 송요.
So the way in which sort of ecumenical studies, the spiritual studies are conducted, and how they were conducted by the founder of our tradition was expressed in a supplication or praises to Kenshin Jigme Principle by a treasury revealing master named Bawo Chuning Dorji. He was a third treasury revealer, and he wrote in a line of kind of expressing his appreciation or accolades to this master. He said, you have brought your own personal accomplishments and self-benefit to its consummation through listening, contemplating, and meditating, and you enact the enlightened activities of benefiting others through expressions of teaching, debate, and composition. Both of the benefits of self and other you accomplish through the academic studies and through setting of facilities for retreat and accomplishment. O great, kind Master, may I always be inseparable with you. And so that's this prayer in which he's basically pointing to that this Khenpo Jigme Principle, what he did was he mastered his own personal knowledge and studies and accomplished that through listening, contemplating, and meditating. And bringing that to full accomplishment, then he enacted the benefit of others. And so that's supposed to be sort of like the point of our studies and practices is that we need to benefit others. And so that dedication to benefiting others through teaching and all of these.
돈슨 가바다 농던 거나 공조돈 삼타 볼라서 생각 존더 치제나 공거 그 단조암 총모 람정 탐치다 판바 당 대와테 주 딘조돈도 되네 다리가 다 르브지스나 저 양속당야 저다 용서 캬야가 제주 돈티모 돈 손요너레 다돈 손요니나 ngātsū lōnglāng kā tā kā mār kiepchāng shēni nā chā kā lōksōr kiep kī wō kā mā yir tā chirī na rāngā chī tān tsōwā kī pōzir kīr tab tā na kōrmō mōngō zir rāk tab tā tīmō kā mā yir tsōwā tā rī kā sōngā mā rī tsōwā tā na tā kā mār nā sādāng sāksōr kiong shēni na tā kā tī sāmbā yā khā sā tā na zhōrwā yā khā sā tā lōzhōng shī 대때니 기령에 그거 로아 정말 ram장 탐치다 지 판밥 교원도 뭐지게 로랑가 다리가 엄기르질 거는 자가 뭐다리 계정시 주 카속소도 다텔라타 요제.
And so then the fifth line in this prophecy, again from before, reads that his benefit, his service to others, his altruistic benefit is like the peak of the king of all mountains. And so what this means is showing that not just Kenshin Jigme Kunsok's intention being always to bring vast benefit to others, but the basic model of the entire universe, the entire institution, and all who study is to dedicate one's life and one's studies for the benefit of others, of all different levels of like superior and middling and lesser students, disciples, followers, whatever category they fit into, for all beings without exception, to dedicate one's studies and knowledge to benefiting them. And so that's why his kind of enactment of the altruistic activity to benefit others is compared to like the supreme peak of the mountains. And so this also is not only the model or the goal of this one founder, but all of the students, for each and every one who participates in the studies at this institution. It is instilled in them the importance of the motivation and the intention behind the studies to be a very magnanimous one, not one that is limited for one's own sort of self-accomplishments, such as, for example, oh, if I get this kind of study, I'll be able to support myself and make a good living and make a lot of money and all of this, but something much broader, something that is for the benefit of others, all beings, whatever category they fall into, whether supreme or middling or lesser, and just to dedicate one's life and one's studies. In other words, the goal behind all of these studies should be motivated by altruistic motivation.
당시기 라롱 그 라도 총에 난다가 되게 캠바에 난다가 창마가 지금 되게 잔라 판투기고도 다는 되게 잠봉는 그다 내리 장된 그 시르긴도 시르기다 르닌도 되게 뭐냐면 예른도 내기고 단동 지기 다리가 런탕가 따와 소스가 다리 원전 건데 ngama darim khambosan kar yagar dorje danda tani khong ko mulums kana achse onje jena jemit yartun tarjan yendo rimin ronam phante parking diken yilla mo banda khona yenze the ris match paga the semchen chama de dari phamba da devam jong ju dana devjin de chma mi pi dari ga da churging ge rinin de tani zawla ta chken de yongs khaba de maz paga dari ga da churgin yhando 직된 그 감사 이런 내기원도 다 공부 맞을지가 다리가 뒤 떡버진도 연락 삼교도 넣고나 막도 되면은 잠바가 지금 뭐 책이 다리 랑커 지금 담쳐다 지금 삼주 모즈 원을다 다 디모 공부 소식 매송하다 또 송원을 다또 옛날 지금 진직을 또 담치고요 공부 지금 공부받지다 진짜 럭터용 거나 까먹는다 옛날에 지금 참에 라니까 걸고 그는 나잖아 판밥 교원도다나 대신도 실 다 르는데 저 따르시 기원도 같이 머레제진데요. 지금 하정 가르치위 이런 거 랭겐즈가 써요.
And so whether the students are monastics or renunciates or whether they are lay people, all of us try to hold to this altruistic dedication to service to others, benefit to others. And so, and also to the preservation of a precious tradition, a precious legacy and tradition of truth and spiritual significance, and to preserving that and spreading that in the world. But that's like our principal kind of motivation. And so, Kenshin Jigme Kunsok Rinpoche, when he was in Bodh Gaya, he uttered a spontaneous, almost like a prayer or a statement in verse in poetry. And it translates as, may the stainless teachings of truth always spread and flourish for a long time. And may all beings, without any segregation or without any bias, may they all live in the glory of well-being, benefit, and happiness. And all times, this is the only prayer I have in my heart. And so what this is saying is that his entire state of mind was just completely dedicated to preserving a precious tradition, a tradition of teachings and sacred wisdom, and also to bringing benefit to others without any segregation or bias, without discrimination, to all sentient beings, to bring benefit, to bring happiness. And this was a tradition that he set forth, and that's kind of the model of the entire institution. And also throughout the world, to bring benefit and to spread kind of the teachings of altruism. And so actually he was saying, at all times, this is my only thought, this is the only thing I am concerned about, is benefiting others. Not like us ordinary people, who we have so many different thoughts and intentions, but usually they're just based on selfish benefit and self-centered goals. But he wasn't like this. He was completely focused on well-being of others and establishing benefit. And we, who are consider ourselves his disciples and his followers, of course it's difficult to truly accomplish a state of mind such as his. But we at least try. We try to emulate that model. And we always try that no matter how much we are studying, yes, learning and studying is important, but we try that our motivation behind the studies and the learning is always coming back to that it is of benefit to others and that we can bring benefit to others.
Tani tonsan chupan rizin jona kortak be tershab shokchir kyak zirundri. Tata ina ju so musu tani larunga tani loma inandra girgin inandra tani jik shok soso songa taga taknga yana rigni mara nyam kido shong yono ta yara tari lakso shi kitona. Tani jik lakso yuha yon yoni taga chudana rignin de sotan chita taga mamtani taga tartib shi idana tan dinji tariga loma zir kona draga shiomba monzo taga sorkyung shi idana taga shok soso taji tartaga mondo shi janzi ina tani ji gyayirchi woyirchi tani jinga chegi sabshok yunga chayshokdana taji amuyir nibatun matun jiri yonrina amuyir ina dandana nashokar gyarkab soso re tani dariga kharshokar gyarkab soso re tsangma jiga nyamda dariga shaya zhoyi kiri yongda tani dariga rini yahanzidana flokso yahazida shokki kanzangda dartib shi gyonda hajinga dariga tsangma semkir shi kyo amuyir zika songyo.
And so the sixth line of this prophecy, this written prophecy, reads, the disciples, the pure retinue that are all the disciples of this great master will permeate throughout the 10, or will permeate and pervade the 10 directions. So what this refers to is sort of like the spread of this legacy of the teachings and the wisdom of Larungar, and that these many different teachers and students that come from all different places, and they gather to learn and to increase their wisdom and knowledge, and then they return to their own, places, and they kind of have gained wisdom that they can share with others in the world, whether it is, Chinese or Tibetans, or from, wherever people are from, whether it's the West or the East, that everyone is accomplishing the same goal, the same activity, and that we all feel that we are kind of share in this motivation and this goal to kind of throughout the 10 directions, as it says, that throughout all directions in the world to spread these kind of like share one's wisdom.
Matsu laruni tani lo ta samchi yarmarzaga na sorkyung shi naga tani girgin so inna 딱 쪼도 칠레도 그 샘 근거를 봐. 샘 토고 되게 쪼죠 내가 짠도시 건데. 그러나 키나 반도 쇼고 로자 모즈고 되네 지금 화름저를 봐당 총례를 봐당 다 지금 당선 그 그 차르 락서 그 리와 모즈가 그 로종시 기능 다 지마다리 되네 무분 직된도 지금 잔다 만자와 그는 여호즈 길규 쳇도 존은 시기요나래 당 맞수이나 대양 도는 시시인지다야 소도 머러는 수수다리 샘큰 거 대치 전주 근데 이게 양 칠레와 모즈다나 드니 길긴 모즈 소경시 결용하다나 드니 지 장마다리 샘톡 그 샘긴 직된 같은 거네 대화다는 내가 판박을 교차다 양다리가 출력을 반도 외시시다나 내가 말씀시키는데
So for upwards of 30 years I've been studying, and many of the teachers all of us feel the same way, that the principal sort of fruition, or rather purpose of the studies should be ultimately to learn how to bring forth inner happiness in the mind. And that's kind of the primary emphasis. Not to say that we don't also study, the traditional academic subjects on the worldly level, but like in our tradition, what is the most important object of our studies is to learn about how to really gain that inner bliss, inner peace in the mind. And the Western institutions of learning, I think, function a little differently in that you can major in economics, and you can learn about finances, and you can learn science, and you can learn all these incredible topics of study. But usually it's because you want to make an influence in the material world. You want to see the development and growth of the material world on the material plane. Whereas for us, it isn't that we don't have an interest in learning about science and all of these important topics. We do study these, but while we study these, we always keep our ultimate goal being to gain developments and make a difference in the internal world, the world of the mind. If we can learn how to bring forth happiness in the world of the mind, then we've really done our kind of duty. If we can impart that as teachers, then that's kind of more of our goal. And that's what you can also term as like the spiritual side of Buddhist studies.
So, then the Tamaga Rabna Ju, Joas Dansina, Rabna Joas Dansina, Dela Pamba Jo, the Linking Souls Songe. Karte Tirtai Pamba Mundriki, Zanga Simmer Chukida, Zana Mupam Shiki. Then Rang, Joa Mazin Bichak, Rangu Gunshu Yadam, Samba Yavanda, Ransk Mishurjo. That they Hajan Karcha in the name Kambanjim Jima, the Yangan Lady, the Kungluma Tanchata, Yardam Kazirkuna Jaga, the Yerchim Gutsertana, the Ransik Mashur, Jansen Matrix Zaidana, the Nitsaka Nijonje. Then the two, the Machaka Luma Tanchi in Najaga, Machaka, the Dab Girgan Shi, and Lopchu, Jamba Sogetnina, then check a Muslim Zonte, Mumag Mug, Ransik the Renig Ranski Naranjaga, the Vision the Rangatariga, the Lega Ranski, America Ranski, Dinchur Maninga. Then is Jan, and enjoy a sudden say Narana. Rabna symmetric, that symmetric is a Mava Jana Jig, a Jana Lopashi Kiriomatan, a Jana Dariga, the Nichig, Shava Nambatan, the Jin of Jana Toshika, that Legasova, Nimodu Mumagan, Droamas in the Zonte, Maningo Samjo, Same, Damjab Somatana, Dijua, Tajik Nibakon Kurko, Mastushi Pioje.
So, principally, what we aim to do and what we aim to kind of accomplish as human beings on this planet is to try to benefit all sentient beings without any kind of bias, and just try to always be of benefit to others. But even if we are not able to accomplish a vast kind of tangible benefit to others on any kind of palpable level, at least we try. We really make it our inner resolution to avoid disturbing the minds of others, hurting the minds of others, harming others in any way. And so, for example, that's what we say. And then also, whatever is in you as your heart's kind of commitments, don't lose that. Don't lose the inner dignity of whatever it is you're holding, your knowledge, your legacies, your heritage. That's what we also say. Right before he was about to pass away, we say in the honorific, we say passing into Party Nirvana. That's how we talk about the Lama passing away. Right before Khinchen Jigme Phuntsol was passing into Party Nirvana, and he was surrounded by a gathering of us disciples, and he said like this hard advice, almost like his last testament, like his final words of instruction to us, and just two simple lines that read, don't lose your inner purpose, and don't disturb the minds and hearts of others. That was just the last line. So we his disciples can hold that really close as basically the model for how we should live our lives. And whatever that purpose, that dignity that you have inside of you is, whether it's your responsibilities, your work as a human being, or your kind of cultural traditions, or whatever it is, try to hold that. Don't just lose that. just hold on to that inner core that is true for you. And then also, ideally, you should avoid harming the minds or disturbing the minds of others. But even if you can't help but, upset the minds of others sometimes, at least we say, try not to overtly harm others. Like, really make it your inner commitment. That's what we do. We make this commitment. We really exert ourselves diligently in trying to concertedly avoid harming others in any way, and especially not engaging in any harmful negative activities that would, of course, bring harm and suffering upon others. So that's what our commitment is, and that's also what we always try to do.
Karte chulugan deshi yo tsayina khurna da ishi chulugina ya tari mukho nirkabna to nyara da hayir yozu bonje teni na tari muzongo chul hayir kizenje dang chigi nawa de sargi bag chulugina to so to da tsefshima la tari dewa chan la so ta bi jang timos gan jensa yozenje tenna to da dongtang gna khungwa tari gam jetsu potona to gam jera totni na 다 버나 다리가 지금 오호메 금 산도니 나란자가 디아와가는 또 대화찬들 기위 다리가 지금 규제당 담박을 거고 추냠슬레노 온도 드네 다리가 대화찬들 다리가 기기올라 플라이오는 말이지 디목송 원제 디목송 요디 당상 다리 지 콩거 라롱고 로기 쪼바 서당 쓰이나 참마근도 하장 다리가 돈 그시 있견 다 당상 있나 또 라롱나 드네 디친 장줍 치모 다리가 쪼고원제 다 디친 장줍 치모 tene tariga ta sojik marna zeginde ke da hajang mangedana tari gergin chimo kongo sona larung nar gindik machulab jezeda teso yo maredana ta ngune ge chi chutsuk chembo da nimo nerkamna de chulab jeda chulab nga yo je jona ya machug ge tariga mesare ina ngche ge chi chang chigre nire de ge sui da timo yo mare de te indi tariga ta changma ge yana chi ge kongo tariga de dechin de jetsu dechin jang da ke ze ginda chi tene ruwa mogene na tsif shumaya tariga tene mogdan rongwa tariga samlok tani tene jiga tanmo mayin baga ta sangwi timogo tene tariga ta gichin zga moge tana sangme te tari ngunsun shekyo re.
The seventh line of this prophecy ends with the line, all who have any connection to this founder, this master, will be placed in the pure land, the heavenly realm of Dewa Chen, of great bliss, pure land. And so here, for those of you in the audience who aren't coming from like a religious adherence to this tradition, you may not believe this, and that's fine. And then those who belong to other religious traditions, for example, like Christianity, where you do have, in some Judeo-Christian religions, there is the belief in like a heavenly realm and a hell realm type of thing. And so it is also in relation to, in a lot of ways, one's actions. So if one is good, then there's a belief that one is born in like heaven. And if one engages in non-virtue or negative action, then one falls to the hell. So there's a similar kind of idea. Well, in the same way, in Buddhism, we believe that there are what are called pure lands or heavenly realms that the consciousness can be reborn in, depending on creating certain conditions and causes, so that when one passes from this life, one can be reborn in the Pure Land. And one of these Pure Lands is called Dewa Chen, the Pure Land of Great Bliss. And it is said, without any deception, like infallible words of the masters and the Buddhas, it says that there are 4 causes to be born in Dewa Chen, and that if you follow these 4 causes, then there's no doubt that when you pass away, you can be born there. And this is considered to be a pure realm, like a heavenly realm. And so that's why for us, I mean, for those of us who believe this, in Larungar we place great emphasis on an annual assembly of a practice called Dechen Shingrup Chenmo, which is the great prayer ceremony where we all gather together and we recite the prayers to be born in the Pure Land of Dewa Chen. It's like a Pure Land practice group, and there are like over 40, 50,000. I mean, of course, we don't count like the numbers exactly like you do here. We don't have like an exact set number, but there are definitely many who make this connection. And that last line of the prophecy says, any connection to this master, anyone who makes the connection will be born in Dewa Chen. So that's why this is, of course, the sacred interpretation. Again, it's what we call the extraordinary, or like the secret implied interpretation of the prophecy.
대한 쳤더니 다 대연초도 드니 지금 대화정그 이나라가 그거 라롱가 그 추쇼고 그 연단 디바삼 샤니인 그거 다 마운 이렇게나 드니 라롱가 세근데 견도 드니 단도 디신 장가 그거 찾을 건로 또 공제스도 디신 장기 요거 그거 다 리모트 모습 지원들이 드니 tani maungana ngatsu garda tari chik chimozo ne dana tani chirtir giri na tari ringayang tari zeshigame kangtari yang ta kharsan deringa neopta teni na ngingoni na taga samno tana chik churjinga ringnayang kala kangsam yoni tangrab ka tari hlopcha susu chik hloksu kapshuk dana hloksu danyir dana yang chik tanba terjinda chik ke yangwa dana jamnim rangwang 다또 많이 바가지 응수 지 잠판 단 니모고 다리 지 삼루 접차 모즈든 손 탑너가 텐제위 다리가 나트는 도나스 랩삼고요 옛나요 단 지금 마음 내급난다 지 시쇼가 하를 고시 지령와야 지 쫀좀 모고 다리가 삼내서 그 책송이 나란자가 대신도 다가 야나가 지 로종 그러나 봐도 이하즈 마음이 있는 tene jima tari ti garndo onino telayo rentang tezami nare kong tari yona tene ji ta taknga yana te lama kumar namba ga ji barchun dana tata yana gergan tene ji moz gu tene sunnu shi dana chame tari lojong shekyo nare di tata ngingoni na te mawa larong ga ta chirtar gerkido kogme tendi trwa chazir konro ta chirtar jirmako ki tari ga tangi jigdut tari chitsku ka tene tari jogi.
And so that kind of wraps up my concise explanation from the Dharma point of view, the spiritual take on the development of Larongar. And this image over here that you see is a picture representing everyone who made this connection to Kenshin Jigme Punsok, and there he is, and he's up in the sky and leading all of the disciples to the Pure Land of Dewa. So how Larongar will be in the future, don't ask me to make any prophecies about that. I don't really know. All I can say is how it is now, and that there is definitely a lot of indication that because of the dedication to equality, for example, and independence and so forth, and also because as the primary kind of model of the entire institute is one of bringing benefit to others and dedicating one's studies, then I can say that right now it is definitely a flourishing institute of Buddhist studies. But as far as how it will continue in the future, that's of course nothing no one can say. But anyway, that's a lot of effort and hard work and diligent dedication has been made by many of the lamas of the past and also many of the teachers that continue to this day to work hard to maintain the quality of learning and study there at this institute.